Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to witness the greatest happening in sport, sudden death podcasting.
It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have a sales expert who is passionate about helping successful business owners take back control of the revenues in their business, their time, and their freedom by building a profitable sales team. She's on a mission to free CEOs from the roles of salesperson in their business. She's the host of the Daily Sales on Demand for CEOs podcast, and she hosts the Daily Sales on Demand for CEO show on YouTube and hosts the Daily Sales on Demand for CEOs live every week in her Facebook world. Wow, she's got a lot of programming going on here. Can't wait to connect with a fellow programmer like this. Sales expert, rock star, and here on Thrive Loud, listeners, Ryann Dowdy.
Hey there, Lou.
So I'm excited to have you on for a couple reasons. People need to know that I love people who love helping salespeople because it's such a fun thing to do. But you have an interesting angle at this. You're helping CEOs take that responsibility away.
Yes.
I want to do a little rewind here. I don't want to go all the way back to the womb, Ryann, but I want to go to the point that how this became your gig.
Ooh. Fun story. I'll give you kind of the fun version. So I'd never intended, Lou, to get into sales. As I shared with you before we hit record, I went to Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York. I studied communications and advertising. Always thought I would end up like on the agency side of things and then I interned in PR. Really thought that was going to be my career. And when I graduated, I couldn't find a job in PR. So I took a sales job and I learned that like sales and PR were kind of the same thing, except for when somebody said yes in sales, you got paid commission. And I was like, this is fun. So that's how I landed in sales. Spent, about 15 years in the corporate world in sales. So climbed from individual contributor to regional sales trainer, national sales trainer, channel sales manager, and ended my corporate career as the director of sales for a digital advertising agency. Never really intended to become an entrepreneur. I thought that sales gave me a lot of time and control over my income, but eventually got to the point where I wanted to make a bigger impact. I wanted to work on projects I wanted to work on. I wanted to work with people I wanted to work with. So I then became an entrepreneur, and I learned that entrepreneurs really don't like sales. I was like, that's weird. Do we not like business? Do we not like money? Like, what's happening over here? So my first business, I actually helped female entrepreneurs, brand new female entrepreneurs, sign their very first clients. And that was kind of my first entree into online entrepreneurship, was helping women, freelancers, coaches, consultants sign their very first clients and leave their day jobs, because that was my story. I was pregnant and working full-time when I built my first business, and finally left my full-time job, never went back after my maternity leave, spent a couple of years there, and then wound up in partnership with who was then my business coach. Her name is Kelly Roach, where we learned that we teach people how to sell, and then they get to a certain level of success in their business, and they're still selling, and they're still selling, and they're still selling, and they become the bottleneck in their business. In traditional business where I grew up, sales team was hire number one, right? That's the first thing we do. It's, what is it called? An MVP, right? Minimum viable product, hire a sales team, right? In online entrepreneur land, it's hire operations and hire client service and hire a marketer and hire an agency. And then we're still wearing the role of sales hat in our business, and we can't figure out why we keep bumping up against a ceiling. And since training sales teams was kind of my superpower in the corporate world, it was what I really loved doing, was training and coaching. It just made sense that now I run a sales training organization where we help entrepreneurs. Their sales is not their primary skill set, but still have really successful sales teams and like I said, free themselves from that day-to-day responsibility.
Okay, so I've got so many places to double click down here, because this is going to be really interesting. And a lot of our listeners are hearing this. And I, by the way, I get the joke and drink the Kool-Aid, but I want to do some lead in here to see if I could help educate our listeners a little bit here. I've always heard that the CEO is the best salesperson for an organization. Is that true?
No.
Tell me why.
The CEO is the salesperson out of necessity, right? Like, aside from crazy people like me, most people did not become business owners to sell. Like, that's not it, right? Like, in fact, I literally did a podcast interview a couple weeks ago, Lou, where the woman told me, like, Ryan, had I known that entrepreneurship was a sales gig, like, I would have stayed in corporate. Like, I did not know this. And so I think that most people start businesses because they have a skill, because they have a passion, because they're really good at whatever it is that they do, not because they're good salespeople. And if you are, as the CEO, it's okay that you're the best salesperson in the beginning. You should be, right? It's your baby. But ultimately, if you want to grow past, what you can accomplish in a day, in a week, then no, 110%. In fact, I've learned, Lou, not only do I not want to be a salesperson, I don't actually want to be a CEO either. What I really want to do is I just want to be a founder and talk to cool people like you all day and do like all the PR and training and stuff for my people. I don't want to do any of it, but I think there's this assignment that we're like, this is just what we do because you had a business idea. This is the track. And I call BS.
Yeah. So you hit a good point, because a lot of people who just found a company or start something, they are the founder and CEO. Right. But to your point, that bifurcation of that role is very important. There is someone that's running the company, and then there might have been somebody who came up with the idea, and often that could be separate, or maybe more notably, it should be. But this is an interesting point, because I've seen this. A lot of these CEOs have a different type of sales job initially. They have to go raise money. They have to go get investors. They have to go hire people. So they have to sell the concept of the company to others just to get the company rolling, even before you're starting to sell the products or even build the products in some cases. So, Ryann Dowdy, the question is this: do you think there's this false sense of how you sell because CEOs or founders initially are just selling the idea versus selling the service or product?
Ooh, I like that question. It's not one I've been asked before, but yes, I do think it's very different, because you're selling two different things. We sell results, right? So the results to the investor, the employee, the whomever, is very different than the results that your product or service is going to yield to the end user. So you're selling two different things.
Yeah. Actually, what you just nailed is the biggest problem I have seen in organizations that are in that they're not just an entrepreneur anymore. They started off with their entrepreneurial boots and grew to a certain side, added sales organizations, and they're still selling that idea even to the clients or to the prospects, and they want to be involved in that process. I've seen this. I've seen, like you said, no, I don't want to be involved, but there are CEOs who are like, what, I should be in that meeting because I know that that's the closest to the revenue that I'm going to be able to tell someone about. Mm-hmm. How do you help not only give them the freedom? I got that. You're going to train the salespeople, you're going to bring in the sales organization and get them selling. But that hurdle you probably run into where the CEO has trouble letting go. How do you get them to see that someone else is better at getting the results than them?
Well, the first thing is admitting in the beginning they won't be better than you. And people are afraid to say that. Like, yeah, no, you should close 60, 70% of the sales calls you get in. It's your baby. You built it. You created it. You know it. You can do like back of the cocktail napkin math that your salesperson will never do, right? But just because they're not going to be as good as you doesn't mean we still don't make that move. That's the hard part, where you're like, but we're leaving money on the table if we're not closing at 60% because I closed at 60%. But the problem is, if you're closing at 60% and you can only run 10 sales calls a week, I would rather close at 30% of somebody who can take 80 sales calls a week. I'm bad at math, but I'm pretty sure we're making more money, right?
Yep.
So for me, that's really it. Like, no, they're not going to be better than you in the beginning, right? They might be eventually if you get out of their way and let them. But ultimately, they're not going to be better than you at the beginning. Then the name of the game is leverage. Mm-hmm. Right? Business is about leverage. You only have so much time. And again, we all started businesses because most of the people that I have the blessing to work with started businesses, Lou, for some level of freedom, time freedom, financial freedom, location freedom. If you are the only person who can close business inside of your business, you don't have any freedom.
Yep.
There is no freedom in that, because if you go on vacation, if heaven forbid you get sick, if heaven forbid something happens, like the business doesn't grow without you. And that's a really dangerous place to be. That's not a business, that's a job.
that is the best split of the two things there. And I think that's great. You've got the CEO selling ideas and they're not selling results.
Right.
And more notably, the difference between making a business a company that runs really well or just working a job to do it for the sake of doing it, which does, that role split of a CEO, because part of the CEO's job at the end of the day is making sure the company runs really well. And the one thing that they should be really good at selling to is either the board or to those other board members, how the vision of where the company is going. We're recording this in early November, and this is the most fun time of the year, which is everyone's starting to plan for the next year. And obviously the number one thing that they're always planning on is sales.
Yeah.
Is to make sure that sales number goes up. You too are probably doing the same thing for you. Whether it's for your podcast shows or the YouTube shows or the Facebook shows and the community shows, are you hitting that point where people are thinking about what next year looks like? And how are you helping sales teams think about 2022 and beyond?
Yeah. So we do this all of the time, not just the end of the year. And this is also, I think, a common misconception and something that happens, Lou, when we get stuck in the weeds of our business, is we have a tendency to look at tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I'm always trying to get our people to look like 90 to 180 days down the road, right? So thinking through the decisions that we make today are for the results that we want in Q1, right? Frankly, we're a little late at this point. We're looking for products. Right. So for me, it's let's look at what are your plans? Is it sales team growth? Is it number growth? Is it new product? Whatever you're doing next year, right? Like we need to start planning now. And so for me, it's always getting people to think in a more visionary way, because again, we get stuck in the day-to-day, especially when you are the CEO, right? You are doing all of the things. You are responsible for all the things in your business. And so you're like, pay payroll this week. Okay, got it, right? Like keep the lights on, got it. Like that's your focus. And we forget to look up. So for me, I'm always trying to get my people to look up and plan ahead. Right? If you're hiring a salesperson today because you need them to sell today, you're late, right? If you're writing the job description for today because you want them to start next month, you're too late, right? So I'm always trying to get my people to think like 90 to 100 days in advance, because the decisions we make today are already impacting us. So like we did our 2022 plan at the beginning of Q4, right? Because I knew that we needed to plan 90 days in advance. I couldn't wait until January 1. That was too late to make an impact in Q1. And so that we do this all the time with our clients. We don't just do this annually. Like we do this all the time. Where do you want to be? Like if you tell me, because eventually we're going to talk to people in January, they're going to be like this spring. And it's like, okay, cool. It's January. We're planning for the spring, right? When we get to the spring, we're planning for the summer. Like we're always planning a season ahead. And so that's how we work with our clients, is how can we plan a season ahead of the business?
I love asking this question because people who work in sales sometimes should lead with this more often. Who has trouble understanding hiring you? Meaning, who are the ones that you don't want as a client? What are the types of people or characteristics that don't fit into the world of Ryann Dowdy and her company?
Ooh, this is a really fun question. The people.
We only have fun questions on Thrive Loud. This is Thrive Loud. You are here because you're fun, Ryan, but you're also amazing and thriving. But that's the type of stuff we ask here.
I like it. They're different questions. So the people, you do not hire me if you really cannot let go of control, right? Like if it's important to you, if you're going to micromanage the process, you don't hire me, because you are an expert at your business because you're an expert at your business. And I'm an expert at sales organizations because I'm an expert at sales organizations. So, my business is really only about, this iteration of my business is only about a year old. And so we're still in that trial and error phase. And we brought on those clients that are like, I'm going to tell you what I want my sales team to learn. And I'm like, no, no, you're not. It's not the way this is going to work. So for me, it's, if it's important to you that it is done the way that you want it done, you should do it yourself. But if you really want to learn how to build, a true sales organization that is completely independent of your role as the CEO, that, eventually should run without you and should be meetings with you and a sales leader, and that should be the only way that you touch your sales organization, then you should hire us. If you want anything other than that in your sales process, then you shouldn't.
I like that question. Ryan, you have been successful throughout your whole career. You've only seen upward movement. You've had your bouncing days, whatever it might be, but you're always that type of person who wants to take people to the next level, and you're helping other people take it to the next level.
Yeah.
which means on most days you're thriving. But on some days, off days, kind of rainy days, you don't necessarily have your A game on and you're not quite kicking on all cylinders.
Sure.
Ryann Dowdy, when you are having trouble thriving, what practice do you seek, or maybe which individual do you seek out to get yourself back on the thriving track?
I have a heavy bag in my basement.
This is spectacular. Keep going. You do. You start punching the living daylights out of shit. I like this.
So actually, I started boxing literally back in 2011. So 10 years ago at this point of the game, I worked for a software company based out of Washington, D.C. at the time. And it was very high stress. It was the type of sales role where you started at zero every month, right? Like it was a deal count and you started over. And so it was stressful all of the time, right? Like you could never get ahead. By the way, I don't suggest that for your salespeople. Don't do it. But because it leads to hitting things. And so that's ultimately where I was there was a title boxing at the time in the town that I lived in. And I was like, this is so much fun. And so that was literally how I would like switch off for the day. Like I would go and I would take a boxing class and then I would go home. I'm like, okay, I can breathe, I can function, I can leave it. And I learned that it was just really amazing stress relief. And, I say all the time that I have solved so many of the world's problems between me and a heavy bag. So we moved into this house. I convinced my husband to hang one from the ceiling in the basement. So that's what I do when I'm not thriving.
Spectacular, by the way. We need more heavy bags in basements. I have a heavy bag in the basement. It's kind of like spectacular. I want to get the admin part of the show out of the way, Ryann, before we get on Fun Street, even though we've been having fun since the very beginning. Share with the listeners all the places people can find you, websites, URLs, socials. We will put it all in the show notes, but it always gets more engagement when they hear it from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website, dailysalesondemandforceos.com. It is long. I know. Don't worry. That was at the advice of our attorney, so we could trademark it all appropriately, not the marketer. So there you go. But it's also the same name of our podcast is Daily Sales on Demand for CEOs, as well as our YouTube channel. So those are great places to find us on social media. We're at Social Sellers Academy across all of the different platforms. And then personally, I love to network, connect, meet new people. So you can also connect with me personally on any network. I am Ryann with 2 N's, Dowdy.
Ryann, you are on the other side of the microphone for a change here. Biggest gift that being a host of all of your programs has been or has given you?
Oh, I love that question. The biggest gift is it has really taught me how to make things that seem difficult to other people very simple. Which has made me a better teacher. And I also think that ultimately it's made me a better parent. I have small kids. My kids are 2 and 4. And so like, I'm a high performer, right? I feel like a lot of business owners are. And so having to take something that comes really easily to me and break it down in really simple chunks for others has really had to cause me to slow down and really think about things. And I think that gift has given me the ability to do that with my children, which is like the most important thing to me.
That and the heavy bag in the basement.
Don't worry. The 4-year-old loves the heavy bag. He's so fine. He has his own boxing gloves.
I love it. All right. You ready to do Fun Street with me here and our listeners? Let's start off. Can you share with the listeners what you shared with me was your all-time favorite movie?
Empire Records.
Why does that movie connect so much with you?
I think it's the period of life of which I found the movie. Like I think it was in high school and in college, and it was when they were actually like VHS and you just watched movies over and over and over again because cable sucked and all the things. And it makes me feel carefree. It makes me feel young. And it just like all the memories associated with that movie and that time in life were really positive.
I laugh because I love when I get one that we haven't had before. Hundreds of guests on the show. I love when we get one.
Oh, it's a terrible movie. Like I'm aware that it's not like actually like really good.
But it connects with you. That's all that matters. Yeah. That's totally it. I like it. We're going to do the speed round here of Fun Street, and this is how this rolls. Okay, I'm going to ask you something. I want the first thing that comes to your mind. Most of these things are things that lift you up, motivate you, make you feel good. Basically, they make you thrive. You ready?
Ready.
Of late, a song that you love to hear, or maybe one that pumps you up.
Ooh, I am really obsessed with anything Justin Bieber right now. It comes with the workouts. Like I love to work out and listen to like fun, like pop music. So Justin Bieber Peaches is like my go-to workout music right now.
I like it. A favorite food that's not a dessert.
Ooh, I don't have any favorite foods that are desserts. I'm a sushi girl all day. Sushi.
Okay, what type of sushi? Any specific one?
I am tuna and avocado rolls are my go-to on any sushi menu.
I like it. Well, now, even though you don't like desserts, what would be a favorite dessert?
This is like evolved over the years.
Okay.
The first one that comes to mind is cheesecake.
Okay, cheesecake works. An activity you wish you did more of?
The heavy bag, obviously.
An activity you wish you did less of?
Meetings. Definitely meetings.
Ryann Dowdy, if I were to snap my fingers and you can go anywhere in the world, where are you?
Italy.
What part?
A winery somewhere in Italy. That's where I am right now.
Tuscany probably would work for you.
Old.
I like it. Ryann Dowdy, not only a fan of Empire Records and heavy bags, but she's also the daily sales on demand for CEOs, helping everyone around there. Thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud today. Hope you had fun.
It was so much fun. Thanks, Lou.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.